Taisha. Taisha.
Was she your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Taisha.
Come on, sweetie.
Yeah, Taisha, come on.
Now come on out.
Taisha.
The heroin epidemic, taking thousands of lives across the country, and some of the areas hit hardest are right here. Kentucky and Ohio rank the top 5 states in the country for heroin overdoses, and the death toll keeps rising. I'm Neha Yusuf. Northern Kentucky is known as one of the worst spots in the country when it comes to heroin. Here are some numbers. More than 1,200 people died from overdoses across Kentucky in 2015, many of those from heroin and fentanyl, a powerful painkiller. Overdose deaths in Kenton County jumped by nearly 60% in 1 year to 112 people. More died from fentanyl overdoses in Kenton County than any other area in the Commonwealth. And Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County all rank in the top 5 for heroin-related deaths in the state. Dolce Hillman is a recent graduate of Villa Madonna Academy. She spent 6 months producing a documentary on how the heroin epidemic is worsening and what can be done to stop it. She calls her award-winning project The Deadly Dragon.
Was she your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Taisha.
Come on, sweetie.
Yeah, Taisha, come on.
Now come on out.
Taisha.
The boyfriend of that now jailed mother and the uncle came home from a bar, found all 5 adults unresponsive, 3 children around them. A Boone County deputy had to call for ambulances when he couldn't wake the 5 up at this Melinda Lane home. One man was face down on the floor, his 2 kids pulling on him to get him awake. And Heather Whittington was passed out on her bed with her infant next to her.
It seems to show the woman sprawled out in the aisle of a store as her 2-year-old daughter tugs her hand, trying to revive her. You can hear the 2-year-old crying there for her mom. Paramedics rushed to the woman to the hospital after reviving her with the antidote Narcan. The toddler is now in the custody of Child Protective Services.
Hey,
Where is he?
Lonnie,
I got the
Lonnie, Keith. Hey.
I call the police,
No,
man.
no.
Man, he ODing, man. What you mean?
You know, when you're hired as a police officer, you're supposed to protect people. You're supposed to make sure they're safe, the community's safe. And every police officer feels that they need to make a difference in that community. With the things that are going on with the heroin and the victims we see, the families, and the heroin users who are a victim of their own decision making because of that initial first time they did heroin and they're hooked on it. It gets to the point where hopelessness sets in.
My name is Rob Sanders. I'm the Commonwealth's attorney for the 16th Judicial Circuit of Kentucky, which is Kenton County. What my responsibility is the Commonwealth attorney, is I'm in charge of all felony prosecutions for all felony offenses that occur here in Kenton County. I've got a full staff of 10 full-time prosecutors and 2 part-time prosecutors that assist me with that. And our mission is obviously to seek justice for the good citizens of Kenton County.
My name is Carly. I went to Mother of Mercy High School and I did this group called Blue Salute. We used to write the military and send them letters if they didn't have families and like care packages and stuff. And I did Key Club. Didn't really play any sports though. After high school, I got accepted into UC's pre-pharmacy program and I was using at the time, so I figured that probably wasn't a good idea. So I switched my majors to social work and I continued going to school for about 3 years, and then my addiction got really bad, and I got arrested, so I had to drop out.
My name is Lieutenant Paul Kunkel. I work for the Newport Police Department.
Can you describe the drain on the court system that is caused by heroin?
Heroin it puts a tremendous drain on the court system. We have, I think in 2016, we had about 200 cases that were just possession of heroin cases. That doesn't account for all the crime that's fueled by heroin addiction, like burglaries, like theft, forged checks, things like that. It doesn't count all the people that were driving while high on heroin and maybe crashed into somebody and hurt them, or crashed into property and did damage. When you start adding up all of the cases that are either heroin possession, heroin dealing, or cases that are fueled by heroin addiction, that probably gets up over 50% of our caseload. And if you take into account all the narcotics cases, all the drugs, not just heroin, then you're probably talking at least 80%, maybe more of our caseload is being fueled by drug addiction in one way or another.
Is methadone the best treatment, or are there others that are better?
There's a lot of debate out there right now about whether they call it medically assisted treatment. Now, there's different kinds of medically assisted treatment. In my opinion, methadone is not the best alternative out there, because methadone is another narcotic and it's substituting one drug for another. And while that may work for some people, it doesn't work for all of them. And there's also the problem of methadone being diverted. In other words, being sold to people on the street, on the black market. And methadone can be abused the same way that heroin is. It's not nearly as prevalent as heroin is. It's more expensive. It's not as potent, but it's still abused. So I prefer medically assisted treatment like Vivitrol shots. I think Vivitrol is a much safer, much more effective way, along obviously with psychological treatment and other drug abuse counseling. It's a much better alternative than substituting one drug for another.
For me, going to jail was the best treatment. I had to quit cold turkey because I've tried Suboxone, I tried methadone, but there's withdrawals from those as well. I believe cold turkey is the best way. I don't suggest everybody goes to jail, but I suggest that they open treatment centers where they just let people withdraw without any other medication and just let them work it out, sweat it out, basically.
Can you talk about how it's not just the stereotypical drug addict or low-income person, how it's affecting suburban people too?
Heroin knows no bounds. Heroin does not discriminate by race, by gender, by height, by weight, by age, certainly not by socioeconomic status. Historically, when we were talking about crack addicts, everybody thought of crack addicts as homeless people, poor people in the inner city. It's not that way with heroin. Heroin has taken hold all over the community in all different forms of life, all different walks of life, all different economic classes.
A lot of people I know, the stereotypical junkie, quote-unquote junkie, is someone that lives in ghettos, low-income housing, and a lot of the people I knew that used, their parents are CEOs of companies. They have a lot of money. It doesn't just affect one person, one class. It affects everybody.
I spent a lot of time talking with people that we were actually doing police work with, catching somebody doing something they shouldn't be doing. What a lot of people don't understand is police officers get to talk to the families of these people who we are policing for heroin affect. Not only the people that are directly related to them, but the people around them. I see a frustration from the people when they watch people being pulled over and officers searching their car and they're seeing that it's drug related and has something to do with heroin. There is pulling people over and they're seeing it has something to do with heroin. They're bystanders, they're angry. They don't want it in their neighborhood. But some of the people live in the neighborhood with their families, and when you hear their story of how many times they've helped their son, their daughter, and their son and daughter has stolen from them, taken precious heirlooms from their homes, taken things to the pawn shop, which creates another dilemma. You're a parent, your son, your daughter just took something to a pawn shop. To get it back, do you do a police report? Put charges on your own kid? If there's any heroes in this, it's the parents who don't give up on their children.
The first time I tried heroin, I was still doing pills. The first time I snorted it, at least. I was doing pills, and someone asked us for a ride to go get their heroin, and they said they would give us some out of it. And I said okay, because I took the gas money, and it was free stuff. And so I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But the first time I used a needle, there was only a small amount left. I was splitting with someone else, and they told me that if I used the needle, like, I'd feel it more. And I didn't really want to, but I had to go to work and I didn't want to be sick, and so I did it, and it was just every time after that.
Taking guilty pleas and sentencing people that have used heroin, been caught with heroin, the judges always ask them, you realize this can kill you, right? And sometimes the judges even make them say it out loud, and they'll say it, I want to hear you say it, this can kill me. And they make the defendant repeat that back to them. And to a T, every defendant knows that heroin can kill them, and yet they use it anyway.
About 4 years ago, I was a mess. Actually, at one point I had overdosed, and I woke up to paramedics around me, and they brought me back to life. And that didn't even stop me from using. I used the next day. And now I can't even think about doing that kind of drug like ever again. Hunter had to get his blood drawn, and it was like the scariest thing for me, because needles never really freaked me out before, but now it's terrifying. Hunter is 2 years old. He just turned 2 January 24th, and he loves Paw Patrol, anything. He really likes egg surprises. I don't know if you know what that is.
No.
It's like these videos on YouTube where they pop open eggs and there's toys inside. He just likes to watch them. He really likes jumping off things now, and that's scary. And he's a daredevil. He's fearless. My hope for Hunter is that he doesn't have to go through what I've been through. I want to make sure he knows what I've been through, but I hope that he makes the choices to not do the things that I did. And I'm beyond blessed to have him. He's by far the greatest thing in my entire life. He's perfect.
Stop. Get help. You know, I mean, every heroin user that I come across in court is, I shouldn't say everyone, but probably almost everyone is tired of using. They know that they shouldn't be doing it. They know that it obviously it's against the law. They know that it's unhealthy for them. They know that every time they do it, they're risking death, but they just can't get out of the cycle. But ask for help. You've got to want the help. Most people figure out that they want the help while they're sitting in jail, drying out after they've detoxed in our detention center. But the help is out there. You don't have to wait till you're arrested to seek the help. There are treatment beds. There's a lot more than there used to be. There's still not enough, but there are treatment beds out there. And if you're somebody that needs help getting off heroin, go to a person you trust. Go to a police officer. Go to a doctor. Go to a teacher. Go to somebody, but seek help.
To anyone currently using, I want to tell them that it's okay to ask for help. I know it's scary and a lot of people are judgmental, but if you go to a recovering addict or an NA or AA group, they will help you. They'll help you get the treatment, they'll help you call places, and they'll help let you talk and vent, and that's probably my only advice.
They need to get clean, and such as in Newport, we have a club called Promises. It's where alcoholics and they have Narcotics Anonymous there also. You can walk in if you have a problem, and there's people there you can sit and talk to. A lot of times, the same users drive past that place on a daily basis. So there is stuff out there where they can go talk to someone who will redirect them, but they gotta want to do it.
Dolce joins us now. Wow, Dolce, that was incredible.
Thank you so much.
So why did you pick this topic for your documentary?
Last summer, I was enrolled in a 2-month camp, and while I was there, I didn't have any access to technology. So my parents picked me up the first thing I saw on television was a news report of the heroin epidemic here in Cincinnati. And I was really shocked because they were talking about it all the way across the nation in Las Vegas.
Oh my gosh. So what surprised you the most when you did your research?
What surprised me the most was that it didn't affect just one class, it affected all classes. Like Carly was talking about, some of her friends' parents were CEOs, and so they had a lot of money, whereas the stereotypical addict was somebody who lives in a low-income home in the inner city.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what do you think, or what do you hope that people would take away from your documentary?
What I hope people would take away is obviously awareness, as this is becoming a serious problem within our tri-state area, but also the nation, but also to tell the families not to lose hope. Because Carly was talking about how important a support system is, and now her life has completely turned around, and she has a 2-year-old son, and she has a stable job, and so just to emphasize that they shouldn't give up.
All right, Dolce, great work.
Thank you.
And when we come back, we'll meet a man who has dedicated his life to helping the people of Greater Cincinnati fight addiction and other challenges. The force behind the Lord's Gym, next. We're here with the Reverend Kevin Johnson, a motivational speaker and life coach, and chaplain for the Lord's Gym in Covington and Cincinnati. Thanks for joining us.
I'm excited to be here. Very excited.
Great. Well, how have you seen the crisis, the heroin crisis, get worse over the years here in Northern Kentucky?
The heroin crisis has increased tremendously. I believe for this reason, this may be a little bit controversial. I don't believe it's increased because we have an addiction problem. I believe it's increased because we have a broken identity problem. I believe that people are hurting so much that they begin to reach out for certain things to try and cover up what they can't identify, or have become so overwhelmed they don't know how to deal with it. So addiction becomes a result. One of the problems we run into when we put so much focus on we have an addiction problem is the reality that the hurt is being ignored. We try and treat the symptom and overlook the problem. I believe in recovery programs. I believe in AA, NA, any religious organizations, and it doesn't have to be one specific religious title. It can be any religious organization that's willing to see humanity change. I believe in these programs, but I don't believe just focusing on the addiction is the solution. We've got to want to go deeper. So I've seen a massive increase of the devastation, the effects of this particular drug use and abuse in people's lives. I can't tell you how many funerals I did over the last 3 years. Young men that I've touched, I've walked through life with, their mothers and fathers, we became very close friends, and then I get a phone call at different hours of the night throughout the day. Hey, he died, she died. Can you come do the service? It's created an intense anger in me, but rather than focus on the anger, I've decided to really focus more on how do I really connect on a deeper level with the people I get to touch on a daily basis. And so I put all my energy into really building relationships. The more their confidence begins to be restored, because they see this person really cares about me. They care about what's really going on in my mind, in my heart. I think if we spend too much time wanting to talk about addiction, we're never going to get to the root issue of brokenness.
Oh, can you talk about some of these specific cases with the people that you've encountered throughout the years?
This specific case, it's a man that I had befriended several years ago when I came to this ministry. It's his son. His son was an incredible athlete, went to a prominent school, which I won't name. He was on his way to becoming one of the leading champs in wrestling in the tri-states. I mean, this kid had it all. Something happened, and we're still not sure what happened, but this kid decided to hang out with people that it wasn't the best choices, but he decided to start using. And we didn't really know that he was using until after we found him dead in his room. His father actually came home one morning, knocked on the door, didn't get a response, pushed it open, and he found a pistol laying next to him, a needle, and it was heroin.
Wow.
There's a lot of details that I'm leaving out, and I'm just focusing on the end result. This kid had it all. He came from a mother and father that were supportive, that were there for him. And all of a sudden, things changed. Now let's go to another story. There's a young man that recently came back into my life, and he's actually in the Exodus program above the Lord's Gym. This young man had actually come to me back in 2014, I believe it was, 2015. Tall, lanky kid, almost looked like somebody like Gomer Powell. If y'all know who that is, that might be before y'all's time. Anybody grown-ups out there listening, they're probably chuckling right now. But this kid came to me, came to the Lord's Gym when I was working the gym over in Covington, Kentucky. I could tell immediately this young man is struggling with drugs. Now, he was in his 20s, but he felt something really awesome when he came into that gym. This is what he felt, that he was accepted. Because of the unique setup that we have at the Lord's Gym in Queensgate, it's off of Dalton Avenue, not far from the post office, for anybody that's listening and is curious as to where that's at. We share a campus with another organization called City Gospel Mission. Above the Lord's Gym is another program that's underneath the umbrella of the City Gospel Mission. It's called the Exodus program. It's a program that receives in men who are trying to fight addiction. It's actually a live-in facility. It can be short-term or long-term. One of the daily requirements of this particular facility for these guys is they have to come down to the Lord's Gym for at least a half an hour to 45 minutes to get a workout in. And one of the beautiful things about this is while I'm actually taking these guys through workouts and they begin to see that I'm there all the time, there's a trust that's built, and they begin to share their life situation with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. When we come back, we'll give you some other resources in our community for getting help and learning more. One of the best places to go for help is Northern Kentucky Hates Heroin. You can download a resource guide for those facing addiction and their loved ones. And they also have a helpline you can call. That number is 859-415-9280. That's 859-415-9280. They feature a powerful section called Real People, Real Stories, along with lots of links for resources, education, and specifics on what the laws are when it comes to heroin and addiction. That's nkyhatesheroin.com. We want to thank the Reverend Kevin Johnson, Madonna Academy, filmmaker Dulce Hillman, and the people who shared their stories in her documentary. We also want to thank the great staff here at TBNK for giving us the platform to look at one of the most serious problems facing Northern Kentucky and the nation. I'm Neha Yusuf with Dulce Hillman. Thank you for joining us.